Going the distance with local sports. This is the X Sports Network.
Comprehensive care with a compassionate touch. That will always be the guarantee at Encompass Healthcare in Etheridge, Tennessee. Whether you're looking for primary or urgent care, x-ray services, or weight loss treatments, the team at Encompass is equipped to serve your needs today. The doors are open Monday through Thursday from 8 to 5 and from 8 to noon on Fridays. Make an appointment with providers Kendra Brown, Tori Cox, or Ellie Brown today. That's Encompass Healthcare, located on Highway 43 North in Etheridge, next door to Chapman Tire.
For decades, First Class Charter has provided high-quality motor coach transportation services to the Tennessee Valley. With numerous safety and cleanliness accreditations, First Class Charter is ready to make your group trip a reality. Contact us today by visiting firstclasscharter.net. First Class Charter, the official motor coach company of the North Alabama Lions.
Flooring sets the tone throughout your home.
For flooring that makes the right first impression, start by choosing us, Floored by Justin.
A one-stop flooring destination. Our new location stands alone for unequaled customer service and selection. Owner Justin Story's mastery of custom hardwood inlays means every room can have a custom look. Discover how the right choice of hardwood, laminate, carpet, or tile can set the tone in your home. Contact Floored by Justin today.
The Summit of Lawrenceburg is the premier senior and assisted living community in the region. The Summit makes it home for you or your loved one with diverse suites that welcome and encourage community, plus gathering spaces, neighborhoods, daily activities, and a wonderful staff that supports you every day.
Hi, I'm Tara Blue. I'm the new director of the Summit, and we would like to invite you and your family to come and tour our facility. We would love to see you here.
Going the distance with local sports. This is the X Sports Network.
Welcome in to the first episode of a new show here on the X Sports Network. We got Mark My Words with your host Michael Marks, and what we are, it's a college sports show. It's a lot like the SEC tailgate we had on previously, but this one is going to be more of a full college show. I mean, we're going to have football, we're going to have basketball, we're going to have baseball, pretty much whatever is in season currently. It's football season. We got football in a full go of it. So we'll hop into a recap of what happened over the weekend. We'll start off with Baylor and SMU. That one, a noon slot game over on the CW, and that one was an absolute dandy of a game, a high-scoring game between two very good offenses. Baylor 0-1 coming in off the loss to Auburn. SMU looking a little more confident entering 2025. You know, they have a playoff win under their, or a playoff appearance under their resume, and then faced East Texas A&M in Week 1 in a good win for them. But this one was all offense all the time. I mean, you know, SMU came out to a great start, 24 points in the first half. You know, they shut out Baylor in pretty much all but two quarters. You know, the first quarter, Baylor, nothing. Third quarter, Baylor, nothing. But the second and fourth quarter was just enough for them. Sawyer Robertson had a huge day for the Bears. 34 of 50, that's 68% completion percentage, amazing. 440 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, no turnovers, ran for another 20 yards. So 460 yards from your quarterback and a 2-overtime thriller. You know, you had 2 receivers over 145 receiving yards. You had an Alabama transfer, Kobe Prentice, have 2 touchdowns. So an all-around great game for Baylor and a big road win over SMU. Kevin Jennings, on the other hand, 16 of 22, 295 and 3 touchdowns, an interception. No fumbles, was able to run the ball very well, which is something that's made Kevin Jennings so dangerous in the ACC. But TJ Harden had a great game on the ground. 19 carries, $115 and 3 touchdowns. A great game for him, but the defense struggled, and that's ended up what costing them the game. 600 yards of offense from Baylor to only 458 for SMU. 30 minutes time possession for each, so that wasn't a big thing. Turnovers didn't really end up playing too big of a factor. Baylor with 2, SMU with 1, but Baylor they were able to keep drives going, sustain them for as long as they could, and ended up having just enough there at the end to take down SMU. Now we'll hop over to our second game, one of the games that probably the one that most people were highest up on entering the week, Illinois-Duke. Illinois 45, Duke 19. Illinois looked great. There's no doubt about that one. They were highly ranked coming into the season. Duke was kind of on the outside looking in. Spent a lot of money on transfer quarterback Darian Mensah. Had an all right game. I mean, you can't complain. 334 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. But turnovers kind of played the role for him. He had 3 turnovers, and that ended up being the nail in the coffin for Duke. Luke Altmaier was awesome throughout the air. Beatty is probably one of the best receivers in the Big Ten. Surprisingly, you don't think of Illinois and receivers in the same sentence, but this year, he's definitely been the guy. 8 catches, 128 yards. Just all around great game. 3 rushing touchdowns. I mean, it was just an all around good offensive performance from especially Luke Altmaier. I mean, 296 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions is definitely what you want from a quarterback in an offense that typically runs the ball a lot. And we'll move on next to another game in that night slot, Vanderbilt and Virginia Tech. One that, it kind of puzzled me entering the week because I didn't know what to expect from these two teams. We saw Vanderbilt look decent in week 1 against Charleston Southern. We saw Virginia Tech hold their own against South Carolina. So it was a recipe for a good game. And for the first 30 minutes, that was the case. Hokies got out to a 10-0 lead in the first quarter, and it was 20-10 at halftime. Diego Pavia didn't look great, had the interception. But, man, they came out in the second half and was awesome. I mean, Richardson with the one-handed touchdown grab was amazing. It's just dominance from Vanderbilt in the second half. If you just watch the third quarter on, you're wondering how Vanderbilt only scored 44 points. I mean, the outgame by Virginia Tech by over 300 yards in just the second half alone. It was just pure dominance from the Commodores. They ran the ball well, they passed the ball well, and their defense kept Kyron Jones on his heels all night long. 17 for 29, 134, and 3 sacks on drones. Was able to run the ball a little bit, but not anything that was able to keep the game going positive for the Hokies. No points in the second half. Vanderbilt, 13 in the third quarter, 21 in the fourth quarter. I mean, they was a team that they were just better than. I mean, this is a Vanderbilt team that, contrary to last year, last year they had all the swagger, the confidence, the moxie in the world. This year they got some talent now. I mean, they brought in some guys in the transfer portal and through their recruiting classes made this team just all around pretty dang good. We'll move on to our next game. Was one of the bigger games of the day in that early slot. We got the Cyhawk game. We got Iowa State, Iowa, a game that had been controlled, by the road team. I mean, over the past couple of years, it was not one that you see a lot of points in. It's going to be an ugly game every year. Fun. It was interesting to see that Iowa State hadn't won a home game in Ames against Iowa since 2011. That's 6 straight home losses in this bowl game, but in the Cyhawk game. But Iowa State is just far and away more talented than Iowa this year. It's the nicest way to say it. Rocco Becht, 18 for 27, 131, and a touchdown. It wasn't going to be a game that you saw a lot of yardage from. It was going to be a game that one play really made the difference. And, Mark Gronowski is, you bring him in from South Dakota State for Iowa and hasn't been able to figure out that offense yet. The pass game has just not been there. Trying running the ball, they ran the ball all right. Actually ended up outrushing Iowa State 131 to 104. Penalties, turnovers didn't really make an impact. It was kind of just who had the ball last. And Kyle Conradi is one of the best kickers in the country. Hit a 54-yarder today to help Iowa. I mean, he had 3 field goals. That was a huge difference in this game. Scored 10 of the 16 points that Iowa State even put up today. So just an all-around great game. If you like defense. But Iowa State able to pull out a big win there, gets them set up 3-0 as they start heading into Big 10 or Big 12 conference play. Now we'll turn it over to our next game of the day. One of the most interesting ones in a rivalry that we hadn't seen in a while, the border war between Kansas and Missouri. 2 unranked teams, but 2 teams that used to share that Big 12 and 2 teams that did not like each other one bit. A game I was unfamiliar with the hatred between these 2 teams. I mean, we had a guy go on, I believe it was at halftime, a guy go out there, I think it was a $10,000 kick, if I'm not mistaken, like a 30 or 35-yard field goal, and rips his shirt off, or rips his coat off that was over his shirt, has an expletive towards Kansas on the front of it, and then just kicks it at the Kansas sideline. So no love lost between these two teams, and man, we had a good one on the field today. Kansas got out to a huge start, 21-6 after one, and then after that, Missouri showed up and decided to start playing some football. Jalen Daniels had a fine game, 18 of 30, 223, and 2 touchdowns. Wasn't able to run the ball, and that's going to end up being the big story for Kansas. 28 yards rushing on 19 carries. It's not going to win you many games. The receiving game wasn't terrible. Hanukkah, the tight end, had a great game, 6 catches, 74 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But man, that defense just got gashed. And Bo Pribula, a guy I was not too high on early in the season, might be one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. I mean, I get it's Kansas, I do, but 30 of 39, 334 yards, 3 touchdowns. He didn't have, this guy was a dual threat, didn't have to run the ball, because you have Amon Hardy, 25 carries, 112 yards, and a touchdown. And then Roberts comes in, 13 carries, 143 yards, and a touchdown. They just looked outstanding. So just an all-in-all, a great game from Missouri. Coleman seems like and Brad Norfleet, the tight end, those two are the real deal. We'll see if this Missouri defense can learn how to stop something, because if so, this offense has really has really opened my eyes to what Missouri can do this year. On to the College Game Day game of the day, Michigan and Oklahoma. That game in Norman. I think it was the opening to Bryce Underwood needs more help, and John Mateer is our Heisman favorite as of right now. Michigan was just overmatched, and it's hard to say that. Got outgained 408 to 288. John Mateer probably had twice as many passing yards as Michigan. Almost ran for more than them. Lucky Michigan had Justice Haynes. They ended up out rushing Oklahoma, but more than twice as many first downs. Oklahoma had almost twice as many first downs. They had 2 turnovers. I mean, this was a game that on paper does not have Oklahoma winning. They turned the ball over, had a lot of penalties. Didn't run the ball as well as Michigan, and Michigan just didn't have enough on offense. Bryce Underwood, 9 of 24, 140 yards, and no touchdowns, no interceptions. Wasn't turning the ball over, but he had one receiver, McGoley, who had 3 catches for 91 yards, and that was really all you got. Justice Haynes, the Alabama transfer, 19 carries, 125 yards, and a touchdown. 6.5 yards a carry looks good, but you take away that 75-yard touchdown rush, and Michigan was completely stagnant on offense. They got down the field a couple of times, but nothing substantial. Now, Oklahoma, on the other hand, John Mateer looks amazing. 21 of 34, 270 yards, a touchdown, a pick. He has had an interception each week, which could be a little concerning for Oklahoma. While it wasn't going to cost you in this one, down the road it may be a bit of a concern. John Mateer was your leading rusher as well. 19 carries for the quarterback, 74 yards and 2 touchdowns. Javante Barnes ran around a little bit. Jaden Ott has been a complete no factor for Oklahoma, getting him out of the portal from Cal. A lot of people were really high on him, but Deion Burks is really, really good for this Oklahoma team. 7 catches, 101 yards, and a touchdown. I think he is probably the key to Oklahoma being as good as they are this year. We didn't see him last year. He was hurt. Jackson Arnold couldn't throw the ball, and now they got Mateer slinging it around the yard, and I think it's made this wide receiving core for Oklahoma look better, and I think it's made their defense better, because their offense now can stay out on the field for more than 3 or 4 plays. They're putting on 10, 12, 14-play drives that are eating a bunch of the clock, and that's what Oklahoma knew this was going to be a low-scoring game, and knew that controlling the clock was the best way to control that. One of the most confusing games of the day. We'll head north to Lexington. Kentucky and Ole Miss. Ole Miss 30, Kentucky 23. Your final score in that one. Coming in, the spread was Kentucky or Ole Miss minus. I think it closed at 8.5. There was no way that I thought Ole Miss was going to win this game by any less than 8 points. We saw Kentucky get their one conference win of the year on the road at Ole Miss last year, a game that ended up costing Ole Miss the spot in the playoff, and they kept it close again. Kentucky did a really good job running the ball with Dowdle and McGowan. Those guys were awesome. Zach Calzada threw the ball a little more than he did last week. Threw for 150 yards. It's not enough, though, for Kentucky to pull this one out. I mean, Ole Miss did all their work in 2 quarters. Austin Simmons, the quarterback for Ole Miss, 13 of 24, 235, 2 touchdowns. No touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Ended up rushing for 8 carries, 44 yards, and a touchdown there. He's got some turnover problems. He's 2 interceptions now in both of his games. Obviously last week wasn't a big test with Georgia State, but this week with Kentucky and next week Ole Miss, their schedule doesn't really heat up necessarily, so to speak. They got Arkansas next week, not a defense that you're worried about, but Arkansas has an offense, though, that if you turn it over a couple of times, they can make you pay. So definitely keep an eye on that Ole Miss-Arkansas game. We'll preview that one a little bit later. The big upset, one of the big upsets today, I saved the 2 biggest upsets for last. South Florida 18, Florida 16 in the swamp. Florida got the swamp drained by USF and head coach Alex Golesh. He's got this team playing tough. I mean, it's a tough, gritty team. DJ Lagway, some people's early Heisman favorite, 23 of 33 for 222, 97, and 222 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Was a no factor on the ground. Jaden Ball had an all right game for Florida, 18 carries for 93 yards, but no touchdowns. And that's the thing for the Gators, could not get in the end zone. You kick 3 field goals, but then you go over to South Florida and they're moving the ball just as well as you. Byron Brown, probably an early Heisman candidate. We'll talk about that in a minute. 23 of 36, 263 yards, 11-yard average, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, no sacks. Didn't fumble the ball, didn't turn it over, and that was the key to this one. USF had the ball last, and they weren't moving the ball. They had it inside their own 15-yard line. You had a 15-yard penalty. That scoots you up. Then you have another 15-yard penalty after that, for a Florida player spitting on a guy. And what are we doing? Then you have the big screen out to the halfback. I believe it was Isaac that had that big catch and run. It was about a 15, 20-yarder. Set them up in field goal range. And if you know anything about this USF team, they got a good kicker. A kicker whose last name is Gramatica. And if you know anything about kicking Gramaticas from Florida, they're good kickers. I mean, this kid was big last week for them, and their win over Boise State, and was huge this week. Ended up missing a kick. Had a missed field goal in that game, but 3 for 4, had the extra point, scored 10 points, and that was all that you needed from this USF team. They've jumped into the AP poll. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but a very, very big win for the boys in South Florida, and maybe some time to worry in Gainesville. And probably the biggest game of the day in my mind, just looking back from all the narrative going into it. Mississippi State 24, number 12 Arizona State 0. This Mississippi State team was not good last year. There's no way to put it. They were not good last year. I read a stat that this was their first ranked win at home against a non-conference Power 4 opponent since 1991. Arkansas wasn't even in the SEC. South Carolina was not even in the SEC the last time Mississippi State had this big of a win at home, and you felt it brewing. They got up big, 17-3 at halftime, and it was 17-0. Arizona State couldn't do anything. Sam Leavitt was not good. 10 of 22, 82 yards, a touchdown, 2 picks. But it was running the ball that kept Arizona State in this one. Outrushed Mississippi State 251-66. Udo was awesome down the stretch, got him down the field there on that last drive that I believe featured 12 or 13 straight run plays that got Arizona State down to the goal line. Huge goal line stand for Mississippi State, and it set them up for a big drive to come back down the field. It didn't look good early in that drive. Obviously, Shapen got sacked, but hit the throw when he needed to. Thompson, the big 58-yard touchdown. One of the fastest guys in the SEC. I don't know how you let him get behind your defense, but it was just enough for Mississippi State. And then they decided, hey, we need to get down the field pretty quick. Arizona State, they needed a touchdown with about 30 seconds left. So for the first time in the entire second half, they let Sam Leavitt throw it, and he threw it to the other team. And Mississippi State 2-0. And I want to take a quick look ahead at Mississippi State's schedule because, folks, their schedule is slated up really nicely. Next week, Alcorn State. The week after that, Northern Illinois. This Mississippi State team could be 4-0 heading into September 27th, where they have a huge home game against Tennessee. This Mississippi State game, for everybody on their schedule: Tennessee, Texas A&M, Florida, Texas, Arkansas, Georgia, Missouri, Ole Miss. Well, that is a brutal stretch. That's a brutal schedule, but that's not a gimme anymore. All 8 of those teams probably had it marked down. Okay, Mississippi State, that's a gimme. We'll get that one, and we'll have at least one conference win. But anymore, I mean, these teams, every one of these teams, probably all 8 of these teams are more talented than Mississippi State. I don't know if any of them got the heart that these Bulldogs do. One of the most impressive wins of the week, 24-20. Some concern out of the Big 12, though, because one of your big dogs just lost to the literal bottom feeder of the SEC. So probably going to have to look to kind of recalibrate yourselves there. A really unexpected high-scoring game. Michigan State 42, Boston College 40, a game that had a ton of points in the first half. Most of the points came early in the first half. It was close down the stretch. Lonergan had a really good game. Dylan Lonergan had a really good game for Boston College, 390 yards and 4 touchdowns. But they just did. Their defense could not stop anything, and it was it wasn't even like a yardage thing. They outgained Michigan State 457 to 380, outthrew them, got outrushed, which is kind of what comes into this. Turnovers weren't a big factor. Michigan State had 4 sacks though. And, when you're trying to – Michigan State was sacked 4 times. They didn't have 4 sacks. So this was all pointing to a BC win. But Aiden Childs down the stretch, man, dude was cold-blooded. And you go to overtime, just leading this team down the field. Both teams looked good, but Aiden Childs through the air, Aiden Childs on the ground. The dude had 270 yards and 5 touchdowns today. What an impressive game for Michigan State. And it is Monday, which is my favorite day of the week for the one reason we have a new AP poll to look at. Now, it comes out on Sunday, but we don't really look at it until Monday when you start looking at the matchups. So we'll take a quick look at this AP Top 25, the new one, for this week. So nothing changes to the top 3. Ohio State, Penn State, LSU remain there. Up 2 spots from 6 to 4, we have Oregon. Miami stayed the same spot at 5. Georgia took a bit of a tumble after only a 28-6 win over Austin Peay. We have Texas at number 7. We have Notre Dame, went up 1 spot after not playing a game. So they bump up to number 8. Illinois inside the top 10 for the first time in what feels like forever. This Illinois team has all the hype in the world. Big game coming up in 2 weeks, though, with Indiana. Florida State up 4 spots after a big win against East Texas A&M. I believe it was 77-0 or 77-3, just complete domination there. They're up 4 spots. They're in the top 10 for the first time in what feels like forever, but it was just 2 years ago. South Carolina dropped 1 spot down to number 11. Clemson down 4 spots to 12 after almost handing Troy a free victory over them. It was 16-0 Troy early in the late in the first half, and Clemson lucky they have enough talent to kind of jump that. Up 5 spots from number 18 to number 13. That would be Oklahoma getting the big win over Michigan. Iowa State up 2 spots from 16 to 14. Tennessee making a big jump, up 7 spots. Actually, the highest riser of the week is Tennessee, up 7 spots from 22 to 15. I think this is more or less a market ploy just to make this Georgia game feel a lot bigger. I don't know if Tennessee was the team that deserved to jump up that much, but the gap between them and Iowa State is a lot of points. So definitely it feels like the AP, at least for the most part, they got those top 15 teams figured out, top 14 teams figured out. Everyone else, though, is really a toss-up week by week. A&M up 3 spots to number 16, 2-0. Didn't look great last week versus UTSA. Looked a lot better this week, though. Ole Miss up 3 spots from number 20 to number 17 after a shaky but a deserving win against Kentucky. They were the better team there. Just I would like it if it felt more like an Ole Miss win. That win did not feel good. It didn't feel right. Ole Miss fans should probably be a little concerned if you're only beating Kentucky by 3 because This Kentucky team isn't great, folks. I mean, this isn't going to be the team from 2017 or 2018 that was winning 9 and 10 games with Benny Snell. It's not that same team. A new ranking newly into the AP Top 25. South Florida at 18. I mean, Florida dropped out, so there's no redundancy there. But wow, I mean, I'm surprised they weren't put in at 25 last week after absolutely smacking Boise State around. But then they go on the road and beat Florida, and they just get 18. I mean, they beat the 13th ranked team in the country on the road, and they just jump up to 18. They're the only team in the country with 2 ranked wins. And I get it, it's South Florida, but if they're not in the top 10, if they beat Miami this weekend, just watch out. Number 19, Alabama, 1-1, absolutely smoked ULM and Bryant-Denny, 73-0. Offense scored every drive. It was just back to clockwork for Alabama. Utah up 5 spots from number 25. They were a new entrant into the AP poll last week. They've moved up comfortably, and Devin Dampier, really good quarterback. Watch out for Utah. They haven't been the team that Utah usually is the past 2 or 3 years. I think this year they might be back. Kyle Whittingham's got them a squad. And number 21 up from number 24 is Texas Tech. They're 2-0 on the year, looking really good. We'll wait to see how much they get tested in the Big 12. Indiana at number 22, up 1 spot from 23. They're 2-0. They took down Kennesaw State 56-9. I'll let you know when they start playing real teams. Number 23, Michigan, down 8 spots from number 15. I mean, this Michigan team's good, folks, but they're not a top 25 team. There was a ranked loss on the road, so they're obviously not going to drop out yet, but I just don't think Michigan's one of the top 25 best teams in the country, and you can't tell me if you watch that team try to throw the ball Saturday that they are. Auburn at number 24, freshly into the top 25, and they're starting to get some love down there on the Plains because this Auburn team could be really, really good, folks. Jackson Arnold looks comfortable. They're running the ball really well. Cam Coleman looks good. Eric Singleton Jr., the transfer from Georgia Tech, looks good. So Auburn could be a team to watch out for, folks. And rounding out the top 25 at number 25, and a new entrant, Missouri. Missouri and Auburn, I look at them very similarly. They're 24 and 25 respectively, 2-0. Had a semi-difficult test against the team from the Big 12. Auburn's was Baylor, which that win looks really good now. Missouri's was against Kansas, who, give or take, that's a good team. So I think, fair that they're in. The SEC sets a record now with 11 teams in the top 25, the most ever from one conference. We'll look at the other teams receiving votes. So just outside at 26, Arizona State. I mean, they're the number 12 team in the country, and they lost on the road. Their quarterback looked awful. I don't know how this many people are still thinking that they're a ranked team. BYU at 27. They're an interesting team because obviously you see the stuff with Jake Retzlaff leaving before the season, goes to Tulane. So BYU kind of has an interesting quarterback dynamic working there, but it seems like everything's going good in BYU. Georgia Tech at 27. This is a very good team. We will see them probably jump into the top 25 this weekend. They got a big game at home against Clemson. Florida at 28. Southern Cal at 29. TCU at 30. I think TCU is probably a ranked team, folks, and I'm surprised Auburn and Missouri are ranked above Mississippi State. Mississippi State out at 31. I just don't know how they beat a top 12 team in the country at home. I get Arizona State's not ranked anymore, but I mean, we Florida State was unranked, beat number 8 Alabama, jumped into almost the top 10. Alabama stayed ranked. This one, Mississippi State, we see them get a big win at home, and they're not ranked, and now Arizona State's not ranked. I'm just hoping that Mississippi State can, if they're 4-0, let's put a number in front of their name. Let's give them some respect until they have proved elsewise. Louisville with 49 votes, they look pretty good. They got a tough schedule in the ACC. Haven't thrown the ball as well as they would like to with Miller Moss, but they're running the ball extremely well. SMU dropped out at 26 with 26 votes, and I didn't see this team being very good to start the season. They brought back Kevin Jennings from a playoff team, but they lost everybody else. You bring in TJ Harden from UCLA at running back. He's great, but you need more than a couple of guys if you want to, be a very good team in the ACC. Nebraska, just outside with 10 votes. They looked good. Dylan Raiola looks good. I mean, and he's taking this Patrick Mahomes thing really seriously. I mean, his tight end even just got engaged after the game Saturday. So props to Nebraska for that one. Tulane just outside with 9 votes. Another team that I think looks pretty good. Jake Retzlaff. He's not throwing the ball as well, but he's run the ball really good. And Tulane looks like a good team. We'll see them. They still got some tests on their schedule. So I think that top group of 5 spots is open as any, but right now it's South Florida and Tulane with that one. Baylor with 7 votes. I don't know how you have Baylor over SMU. Baylor just went to SMU and won, and probably could have won a little more convincingly than they did. UNLV at 5 votes. They're one of the 2 3-0 teams in the country, along with Iowa State. They had a big win over UCLA Saturday night. Nico tried to get him back into it for UCLA, but UNLV's defense stood tall for Dan Mullen, and another very testy group of 5 team right there. Pittsburgh getting some votes with 3, Navy 2, Memphis 1, and Vandy 1. Vanderbilt does open up conference play with South Carolina. I think that could be a very interesting one. But yeah, we got a ton of good stuff out of college football this week, and it's always those slates that you think are going to be the misses. You got hits, you got misses. You think that's going to be a miss. That usually end up hitting the hardest. And this was a great slate. It wasn't as top heavy as week 1, but it's a very good, very, very good week 2. And starting in week 3, folks, we're starting to get some conference games. We're starting to get some big time matchups, and we'll start getting some really good ones in here. So that'll do it for this first ever episode of Mark My Words. We'll be back on a Wednesday around the same time, and we'll give you the news and what's going on throughout the week. And then Friday, be sure to check in Friday, as we'll have our preview show for the games this weekend. So for Michael Marks, this has been Mark My Words on the X Sports Network.
This is the X Sports Network.